Hey guys, TGKS Productions for this Red Dead Online video. I'm going to be reaching $100,000 in this video, but I'm also going to be telling you guys how I make money in Red Dead Online as well. Now, $100,000 in Red Dead Online at this point really isn't that impressive. There are players that have a lot more money than I do, but to a beginner that may be watching this, $100,000 of course is a lot of money. But I don't grind Red Dead Online as much as you may think I do. If you've been on this channel for a while, I sort of split my time between Red Dead Online, GTA Online, but I'll sort of explain in this video how I make my money in Red Dead Online and how I make it really efficiently. And I would say a lot of other grinders would agree with me on this, or players that make a lot of money in Red Dead Online or have a lot of money. This is likely the way, or really this is the way that they would be making money in Red Dead Online. Now, the way players make a lot of money in Red Dead Online is with the roles. I talked about in my leveling up milestone video how I rank up is really with the roles. Making money in Red Dead Online as well as ranking up goes hand in hand, and that is with the roles. If you want to make a lot of money in Red Dead Online, you want to be invested in the roles, and a lot of times if you want to make a lot of gold in Red Dead Online, you want to focus on the daily challenge. But there's also a lot of role-related daily challenges that you can do to earn gold, and you can only do those if you're invested in the roles. So really, roles is what you want to get involved with in Red Dead Online because that's how you're going to maximize your profits. So I'm not going to be going into a ton of detail on each role in this video. We have 5 roles currently in Red Dead Online when I'm recording and releasing this video. I am going to be utilizing all 5 roles to reach $100,000, but mainly what I'm going to be doing in this video, besides giving you a little bit of information on each role, I'm going to be sort of recommending when you should purchase each role and sort of, what order you should buy what role in. So the first role we're going to be starting with here is the trader role, and all players that are starting in Red Dead Online, I recommend they invest in this role first. You notice here I have 100 goods, which is the most amount of goods you can have. It's worth $625 for a distant delivery, which is what I'm doing. If you do a local delivery, you're not traveling as far, so you're going to be making a little bit less money. But I wanted to do the further range sale here to make as most that I possibly could. But again, I do recommend players invest in this role first. Now with this role, you're always selling with a delivery wagon. There's actually a small, medium, and large delivery wagon. I have the large delivery wagon here, and essentially the larger the delivery wagon, the more you're going to be able to sell. Now, one thing that you have to understand with these roles is when you first purchase them, you're not going to be making as much money off of it, or the most amount of money you could possibly make with it, until you're on role 20 and you've unlocked all sort of the unlockables. This really is true for the trader role because you have to have the large delivery wagon in order to make the most you possibly can off this role. So when you first purchase it, again, you're not going to make the most amount of money off of it right away. But really, why do I recommend buying this first? Well, the reason why I recommend buying this first is that there's a couple reasons. One is it's a passive producing role. Essentially, as long as you have animal materials and supplies sufficiently, and at the butcher's table in your camp, which I was just at before I started the sale, and your business is operational, you could do other activities in Red Dead Online free mode, and you're still going to be producing goods, which you can eventually sell to make money. So again, that's what I mean by a passive producing role. The other reason is really, if say you're starting out with some friends in Red Dead Online, maybe a group of you decided, hey, we're going to start playing Red Dead Online. Really, this role is great for helping friends. I have a friend helping me on this, and essentially, friends get 50% of what you make. Now, what's nice is if you're, for example, I'm selling $625 worth of goods here, I'm still getting paid $625. But my friend is getting $312.50, but that is separate. I still get my $625, my friend gets $312.50. So whatever you make, your posse members get 50%. They don't get 50% of your chunk, but they make 50% of whatever you're getting. Hopefully I didn't make that confusing, but that is another reason why this is a great role. You also notice I do have, another thing is, I have my friend here because of the mere fact that if you're making a far range sale or a distant delivery, you can't be in defensive mode. So players can lock onto you. It makes it much easier to get griefed. So for that reason, you'd want to have friends protecting you. I have my friend here helping me. So he's going to get paid a lot of money, but he's also here to protect me in case, griefers come out and, come from somewhere in the game and decide to try to blow up my sale or, destroy my sale, I guess you could say. Now, one thing I want to say here is that I've noticed, and I believe this is still the case, I don't think Rockstar patched this, if you're delivery wagon does get destroyed, you can leave the session or probably even close your app, and you should be able to save your sale. So just keep that in mind. But in any case, enough with the trader sale. Let's go ahead and skip to the very end where we actually make the sale. Now, as we're coming up to the delivery here, you'll notice we have NPC enemies that we have to take out. With these trader sales, there's a number of different variations. You won't always have NPC enemies to have to kill. Sometimes you'll be able to just deliver the wagon. Sometimes you'll have NPCs chasing you during the sale or while you're driving the wagon. So there's a number of different variations. All aren't really super difficult. I would mostly worry about having to deal with the player. I'd also recommend having sufficient tonics on you, even if you have like minty big game meat or the stew pot at your camp, which is also tied to the trader role, which can, if you cook some of the stews, they can fortify your inner cores to make them golden, which is, the best that you can have them. Just give you an advantage in a PvP or PvE situation. The only other thing I'll really mention is I was selling a new Austin. A lot of players like to sell a new Austin just for the sake of, there's not always a lot of players down there, and that's not always necessarily true that there won't be a lot of players down there, but also the fact that it's a lot more of a flatter ground. You're not having to deal with like the mountainous terrain, such as like you may see in West Elizabeth, Ambrino, New Hanover, Lemoyne. So that's sort of another reason. But in any case here, you'll notice that we finished the sale. We got paid $625, even 2,500 XP. So that sort of ties into what I said in my milestone rank video. You can make a lot of rank with these, or you can earn a lot of rank with these roles. My friend again got paid $312.50. And that's pretty much it for the trader role and all I'll really talk about in this video. Let's move on to the next role. Next up here, we have the Moonshiner Role, and this is the second role that I recommend players invest in Red Dead Online. Now, this role brought the first property, and really only property that we have at this time in Red Dead Online. Now, I'm loading in here, and you'll notice behind me, there's Maggie. She controls the Moonshine story missions. You can start bootlegging missions from her, which will lower your mash costs, which I'll talk about here next. And you can also there's a Moonshine store there, which allows you to control what you can put inside your Moonshine shack. Now down here we have Marcel. Now Marcel is who creates our Moonshine recipes. Essentially, you have to purchase mash material from him, which you can lower by doing bootlegging missions or Moonshine story missions. Sometimes Rockstar will even give benefits out to give you free Moonshine mash. And then from there, you have to choose ingredients to put in, such as like apples, maybe like canned peaches, apricots, certain things like that to put into your Moonshine recipe. And from there, it takes a certain amount of time to create your recipe. And then once it's created, similar to once your trader goods have been produced, you can make a sale. Now, also similar to the trader role, you're only going to be able to maximize your profits on the Moonshiner role until you really max out all 20 role ranks for the Moonshiner role and you're able to buy the more powerful stills, so to say, that will allow you to produce average shine and then furthermore strong moonshine. Strong moonshine takes the longest to produce, takes 48 minutes, but also it is the most profitable shine that you can produce. So that's something else you want to keep in mind. Now the moonshine sales are fairly similar to the trader sales, where you have to deliver a wagon pretty much from your moonshine shack to a delivery location. The only exception is there's no really distant delivery. There's also not really a local delivery, but I will tell you that the moonshine sales are much shorter than the trader sales. You can also do all moonshine sales in defensive mode, which is nice. You can, even if you forget to put yourself in defensive mode before the sale, which I did, you can put yourself in defensive mode during the sale. You definitely want to do that. That way players can't lock on to you. Makes it a lot harder for players to grief you. So that is really nice. And also, when you're delivering the wagon, you want to be very careful not to go off the path that you were taking to sort of try to make shortcuts or anything like that, because when you start doing that, or if you hit into something, you can be breaking bottles extremely quickly, which you can sort of see the moonshine health, so to say, in that circular meter at the top there. The more bottles you break, the less profit you're going to get, and profit can go down extremely quick just with breaking 1 or 2 bottles. So you want to be very careful when selling. Now, with every single moonshine sale, you're always going to come across these revenue agents with every single sale. Now, you want to pull up and stop in the checkpoint here. If you don't, they'll automatically start shooting at you. But when you stop here, they're going to come and check your wagon. And essentially, you either have the chance of them checking it and you being able to go right through the checkpoint, or they check it, they claim you have shine, they're going to start shooting at you. Obviously, if they start shooting at you, you run the risk of them destroying more bottles. Personally, if they start shooting at you, I recommend just getting off the wagon, killing them all here, and then they're going to end up chasing after you. Unfortunately, a couple horses here and there while you're delivering the wagon. You're gonna, if you have a friend with you, have them take care of those revenue agents. But if you're by yourself, I would just stop the wagon, shoot them real quick, then just keep going. That way, you're not, having risking them shooting the bottles or you trying to shoot them, then you wreck or something like that. Fortunately, with this sale, they checked the wagon. I was able to get through, no problems, and I wasn't chased by revenue agents. And one last tip I want to highlight here for the moonshine sales: if you pull out a firearm and aim it, your wagon sort of goes in this autopilot mode. However, one thing you want to make sure of is you don't push the steer button. I believe at least on console, it's one of the joysticks, L3 or R3. Whatever the steer button is, do not push that in any way when you're performing this, because if you do, you will end up crashing. But if you sort of go in this autopilot mode, you can ensure that the horses will stay on the path, you won't wreck into anything, and obviously causing you to lose bottles. So it's a great way to ensure you're delivering the sale successfully without breaking bottles. So we're coming up under the sale destination here at the Bandhorn Saloon. After said moonshine was sold, you're going to notice we made $247.50, earned 924 XP. My friend also got a chunk of cash for helping me. I don't believe it's exactly 50%, but he did get some cash for helping me nonetheless. So let's move on to the next role. So next up here we have the Bounty Hunter role, and personally I recommend buying this role last. There's even an expansion to this role which brought the prestigious license and infamous bounties, which you can only purchase the prestigious license after you purchase the regular Bounty Hunter license. Altogether, I recommend you buy all of that after purchasing the other 4 roles. This role is very grindy. It can be difficult for beginners, so I recommend purchasing this role last. Now right here is one of the 13 bounty posters spread across World of Red Dead. We have 3 posters here, and you notice at the top of the poster we have dollar signs. Essentially, the more dollar signs, the harder the bounty mission. So the left one is an easy bounty mission, the middle one is a medium bounty mission. The far right poster, the third one, is a hard bounty missions with the $3 signs. If you also go to the hard bounty mission, which is on the far right, click up on the D-pad, there is infamous bounty missions, and essentially there's 3 missions for every infamous bounty poster. And if you complete those 3 missions, I believe on the 3rd mission you get a little bit of a bonus, so you can make a little bit more money with those. And also what we have here, and we're about to start, are legendary bounties. Now legendary bounties are arguably how you're going to earn the most cash, gold. You can earn gold from this role, it's not a ton, but legendary bounties are the most, or arguably how you're going to earn the most cash, gold, and role XP from this role. The downside of that is these are arguably the hardest missions in Red Dead Online and can be very difficult for beginners. Now with each of these legendary bounty hunter missions, you're going to get an introduction from the bounty hunter lady who introduced you to the bounty hunter role when you go to purchase a license. She gives you an intro with all these legendary bounties, and there's 5 difficulties for each of these legendary bounties. Each difficulty is going to get harder, but you're also going to make more cash, more gold, and more rule XP with the harder difficulties. And once you get to difficulty 5, you'll always be able to replay the legendary bounty on difficulty 5. Now with this particular legendary bounty, Virgil Edwards, who's actually the last legendary bounty we added to Red Dead Online this past December, you have to go to or search these 3 camp locations out that you'll see here on the map. And essentially each of these camp locations is going to have cultists in them, or potential cultists in them. And one of the cultists you're going to have to end up looting, and they're going to have the location of Virgil Edwards. Sometimes you only have to go to 1 camp location, or even just 2 camp locations. For us, we had to end up going through all 3. And the 3rd cultist we looted in the last location ended up having the location of Virgil Edwards. Now for the location of Virgil Edwards particularly, there are 2 different locations. One of them here is in the cave, and he takes a lot of damage. He has his armor on. Usually I like to use express rounds or even explosive or incinerate rounds to bring him down. And pretty much from here, I'm going to reinforce him, or apprehend him with the reinforced lasso, and take him in to the jail. So we're bringing Virgil Edwards here to the Ansburg Sheriff's Office. You always have to go through this sort of cutscene with the sheriff, bring legendary bounties in, and then from there, after delivering the legendary bounty to the Sheriff's Office, you will load back into free mode. After loading in here, you notice that we got paid $229.08, 0.4 gold bars, and 1,278 RP, which is a pretty good amount of cash, gold, and RP for these legendary bounties. Again, if you want to make a lot of the bounty hunter role, legendary bounties are where it's at. Now onto the fourth role we're going to be earning cash from in this video, and also XP, and that is the Naturalist Role. Now I recommend that players purchase the Naturalist Role fourth out of the roles in Red Dead Online. So when you purchase the Naturalist Role, you're going to get this animal field guide that can be found in the item section in your weapon wheel. And pretty much all the animals in Red Dead Online are split into these 9 categories, or even 10 you could say. We have these regular animal categories, which are these first 5 that I'm showing you here. We have common critters also after this, which you'll see. You can only study those animals. You can't really, for the animal field guide, can't gather samples. And then we also have 4 legendary animal categories, which you may have saw there. And essentially, if you open up a category, you click on an animal, it shows you everything you need to do or perform on that animal in order to be able to complete the animal field guide. Really, that doesn't really have anything to do with making money with this role. You might earn a little bit of role XP if you complete an animal in the animal field guide, but also if you open up your satchel and you go into the valuable section, you have these animal kits. The gold ones are the legendary animal kits, and essentially as far as samples are concerned, you can hold up to 3 samples for 1 legendary animal, and then these white or gray kits here are regular animal categories, and you can hold up to 10 samples for a animal in just the regular animal category. And as you probably would have guessed, the legendary animal samples and trading in those categories, which I'm going to show here next, are going to sell for much more than the regular animal samples in those categories. And then obviously right here we had to have Harriet spray us. Fortunately, that's if you kill too many animals in a given period of time. So we're going to go ahead and skip this and actually get to the selling part. So after about 5 minutes, Harriet opens back up for us to be able to buy, sell, and start these legendary animal sighting missions from her. And essentially, legendary animal sighting missions are legendary animals that can only be found in those sighting missions, where you'd be able to kill, gather a sample for, complete the animal field guide. Honestly, I love those much more because it's way easier to get those legendary animals than the random spawns of them in free mode, or for the ones that spawn in free mode. So really enjoy those. So previously I showed you the animal categories. Essentially there's a certain number of animals in that category that may be somewhat related. In this particular section of the video, I'm focusing on the forest and river habitats animal category. Essentially, in order to maximize your earnings off the Naturalist Role, you need to sell an animal sample for every single animal in a particular category, and then trade in that category by opening up the animal field guide, which I'll show you. Now, one mistake that a big mistake that players can make, which would really cause them to lose a ton of money, is selling more than one animal sample for a particular animal at a time. For example, I believe the jackrabbit is one of the animal samples in the forest and river habitats category. I only want to sell one animal sample for that particular animal, or for the jackrabbit, even if I have up to 10, which is the most I can hold for a regular animal sample. The reason that being is that this doesn't stack. Just because I sell 2 animal samples doesn't mean that I get it stamped for when I trade in another category. You can only trade in one category at a time, which the only way you can do that is by selling one animal sample for every animal in that category. And you notice here that these little sort of badges next to each animal, that just shows that they are stamped. I ended up forgetting the western moose, so I ended up having to go back in and sell that one. I'm always very careful when I'm selling these because I don't want to end up accidentally selling an animal sample that isn't in this category, or I don't end up selling 2 of a particular animal sample. So I know that I forgot the western moose. I'm going to go find the animal sample, sell it, and then as soon as I sell that, I'm able to trade in the category. And again, by trading in the category, I'm opening the animal field guide in order to do that.
How can humans think themselves masters of this world compared to animals like these?
So now that I finished selling all the samples in the forest and river habitat category, I'm going to open the animal field guide. I'm going to scroll over to that category. You notice sort of this big badge on that category, which just means I have all the animals stamped, which just means I sold an animal sample for every single animal in that category. I'm going to click the trade in button, and there I get to reap my profit. Now, there's also another character with this role, Gus McMillan. Essentially, he just acts as a glorified butcher. He sells things you can sell to the butcher, you sell to him for the same price. The only difference is he can't sell fish to him, and he also crafts legendary garments, which if you take a legendary animal pelt to him, he'll be able to craft it into a legendary garment or a garment set. Really can't make too much money from him. Really, most of the money you're going to make with this role is going to be from Harriet. Now, onto the fifth and final role we're going to discuss in this video, and that is the collector role. Now, I recommend, this is arguably the most profitable role in Red Dead Online, and I do recommend purchasing this role third. A lot of players may question why I would recommend them purchase this role third if they were starting out, and I will briefly explain this by the end of the video. But first, I want to put focus on the collector role. Now, I'm writing up to Madame Nazar here, who you purchase the collector role from. When you purchase the collector role, you get this collector's bag, and you can find this in your weapon wheel in the items section, same place where the animal field guide can be found. And there are 17 collections. Essentially, you have to find collectibles to complete these collections. There are 17 collections total, which I'm showing you here. And then there's also a weekly collection. Now, the weekly collection, you have to go to either your camp lockbox or the post office to pick that up. That way you can see what you have to collect for the weekly collection. Typically, it's around 3 collectibles with each weekly collection. But essentially, if you click on a collection here, you can see all of the collection, or all the collectibles you have to find to complete that collection. The fossil collections were actually added with the Naturalist Role update. The other 14 collections have been in the game since the collector role was added with the Frontier Pursuits update. Unfortunately, since then, with the Naturalist Role update, the fossils can only be found randomly. Like, if you go to a fossil location, it's going to give you a random fossil. The jewelry is also now random. The majority of the jewelry and the coins are also now random, which is very unfortunate because those are some of the most profitable collections. I think Rockstar saw that and they decided to nerf it and then made them a lot harder to acquire. You also just saw there I was in collection section in my satchel. Essentially there you can see what collections you have complete and what collectibles you have in a particular collection. Now, when you're selling collections, and I say collections to Madame Nazar, you only want to sell collections to Madame Nazar. You do not want to sell individual collectibles. Unlike the Naturalist Role, you have to sell individual samples to trade in the category. You do not want to sell individual collectibles to Madame Nazar. You only want to sell complete collections. That is how you're going to make the most off of this role. I also don't really recommend selling the weekly collections. You can if you want, but personally, I think you're going to make much more money just selling the other collections. There's also a Condor Egg free mode event that comes around a few times a day, which if you're lucky enough to find the Condor Egg, you can actually sell to Madame Nazar for $1,000. Now, at this point, we are getting pretty close to reaching $100,000. I do want to be clear, I did sell these collections during a 1.5 times cash week for collections. So I did make a lot more money in collections this week. Nonetheless, this still is a very profitable role, even without a bonus. So we're pretty much right here at reaching $100,000. This next heirloom collection we are going to sell is going to get us there, and right there we reach $100,000. You also notice that I am sort of, after I'm selling a collection, I scroll over to a different collection and I scroll back. The reason why I'm doing that is because I've noticed in the past that sometimes if you just keep selling the same collection over and over again, or you don't do that whole scroll back and forth, even if another collection scrolls over to the left, it ends up sort of, I guess, glitching out in a way, and you start selling individual collectibles. And I've noticed in the past I've actually lost out on a collection because of the game doing this. Rockstar really needs to fix this, but like I said, just to sort of, being aware of this, I would just recommend scrolling back and forth between collections to sort of reset it. That way you don't encounter any issues. And I did decide to keep selling these collections mainly due to the event week, which yielded 1.5 times cash for collections. Definitely a week you would want to take part in, so that's why I continue to sell. I believe I had around 47 collections to sell, so I definitely wanted to take advantage to the profits that I could make. And really just sort of summarize everything we discussed in this video as far as the 5 rules are concerned. In the beginning of the video, I recommended the trader role and the moonshiner role is the first roles that a player should invest in if they're starting up in Red Dead Online. Main reason for that being is they are passive producing roles. Essentially, as long as the business is operational, the goods are going to produce. All you have to do then is make the sale. A lot of players wonder why I didn't recommend the collector role is the first role because it's the most profitable. The reason why I didn't was because the collector role isn't passive producing. Essentially, while you are collecting collectibles to complete a collection, your trader role and your moonshiner role can produce. On top of that, with the collector role, you have to do a lot of traveling around the map, which could take hours or an hour, 2 hours just to complete a collection. You know, you could end up having to pay a lot of money to quick travel, or you could just do the traveling. And that time, you could literally probably sold your moonshiner business, 2, maybe 3 times, and maybe even possibly your trader role, which could have made you probably over $1,000. So that's sort of the reason why I recommend the ordering there. And then same thing with the naturalist role. You can sort of be gathering samples for Harriet while you're collecting at the same time while your trader role and moonshiner role is producing. The bounty hunter role is really the hardest one to get in the mix here. You can try to do free mode bounties while you're sort of doing all this. I think it's way too overwhelming. Personally, what I'd recommend you do is just doing a legendary bounty and then just waiting for that 1 hour timer. So really, all in all, what you could do is let your trader role and moonshiner role produce. While that's happening, you can collect, gather samples for Harriet, and then if you want to, add a legendary bounty in every hour. But in any case, guys, that's pretty much everything I have to present you in this video. We also leveled up a ton with selling all these collections. We got some awards that we could trade in or reset to even earn some gold, so that was awesome. But in any case, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it beneficial. I apologize for it being very long. I wanted to try to make it beneficial for the players. Sort of having, sort of breaking down these roles is very takes a lot of time to do and explain. And I may make another video dedicated to breaking these down and maybe even a little bit more detail to try to make it even more helpful to you guys. But as always, please remember to like, subscribe, share this video. Be sure to comment if you have any questions, and have a great day.